I didn't think he'd actually leave. That's what I keep trying to explain to everyone who judges me for what happened. I thought mature couples could work through infidelity. That asking my husband to be mature about my affair meant we'd have rational conversations and eventually move past it. I didn't think being mature meant he'd calmly file for divorce, divide our assets logically, and exit the marriage with dignity while I watched everything fall apart. I didn't realize that mature people leave relationships where they're disrespected rather than fighting to fix them. I was catastrophically wrong about all of that. The affair itself seemed manageable to me. Not ideal, but something we could handle as adults. I'd been sleeping with my coworker Derek for 3 months. We worked closely together on projects, had chemistry, gave into it during a late night at the office, continued seeing each other occasionally after that, just physical, no plans to leave our respective spouses, just something that happened between two adults who were attracted to each other. I thought if my husband found out, we'd talk about it like mature people, work through the issues that led to the affair, maybe go to counseling, eventually rebuild trust. That's what sophisticated, evolved couples do when faced with infidelity. They communicate, they process, they grow from it. I was completely wrong about what mature people actually do when their spouse cheats on them. My name is Lauren. I'm 34 years old. I work as a project manager at a consulting firm making excellent money. I've been married to my husband Graeme for 8 years, together for 10 total. We have a nice house in a good neighborhood, normal life with 2 successful careers and comfortable routines. Graeme is a good husband overall, 36 years old, works as an architect at a respected firm, makes good money, intelligent, thoughtful, emotionally stable. We have a solid marriage, or had one. Until 3 months ago, when I started sleeping with Derek and thought Graeme would handle it maturely if he found out. Derek is my age, 34, senior consultant at my firm, attractive, successful, married with 1 kid. We'd worked together for 2 years, always had good chemistry. 3 months ago, during a late project deadline, that chemistry turned physical. We had sex in his office after everyone else left. It was exciting and intense. We both knew it was wrong, but did it anyway. After that first time, we continued seeing each other, meeting at his apartment during lunch breaks, staying late at the office together, having sex every week or 2. We both agreed it was just physical. Neither of us wanted to leave our marriages. We were just enjoying the attraction while keeping it separate from our real lives. I thought I was being careful. Thought Graeme had no idea. But I was wrong about that too. The conversation that destroyed everything happened on a Wednesday 3 weeks ago. I came home from work around 7 p.m. Graeme was in the kitchen making dinner. He looked at me with an expression I'd never seen before. Calm, but cold. Decided. "We need to talk," Graeme said quietly. "About what?" "About Derek. About you having an affair with him for the past 3 months. About you lying to me every day while sleeping with your coworker." My stomach dropped. "Graeme, I know everything," Graeme said calmly. "I've known for 6 weeks. I hired a private investigator after I noticed charges on our credit card from a hotel near your office. Small amounts, lunch hour timing. The investigator confirmed you've been meeting Derek at his apartment. Documented 12 separate occasions over the past 2 months. I have photos, timestamps, everything." "Graeme, let me explain." "You don't need to explain," Graeme interrupted. "I know what's been happening. You've been having an affair with Derek. You've been lying about working late, about lunch meetings, about everything. I have documentation. I have proof. There's nothing to explain. Before we get into it, don't forget to like and subscribe and hit hype to boost this episode. Drop a comment below with your city or country. I'm always curious where viewers are joining from. "I'm sorry. I don't care," Graeme said simply. "I'm not interested in your apology. I'm telling you that I know, and I'm giving you a choice. You can end the affair immediately and we can try to work through this. Or you can continue seeing Derek and we get divorced. You decide. That's not fair. It's completely fair, Graeme said. You had an affair. You broke our marriage vows. Now you choose whether you want to save the marriage or continue the affair. Those are the only two options. Choose. I should have said I'd end it with Derek immediately. Should have chosen my marriage. But I was defensive and angry that Graeme had hired an investigator. Angry that he was giving me ultimatums. Angry that he wasn't being understanding about the complexity of the situation. I need you to be mature about this, I said. Affairs happen. People make mistakes. We need to work through this like adults instead of you issuing ultimatums and threatening divorce. Graeme stared at me. You want me to be mature about you cheating on me? I want us to handle this like evolved people, I said. To talk about why it happened, to understand the underlying issues, to work through it rationally instead of reacting emotionally with threats and demands. I'm not reacting emotionally, Graeme said. I'm reacting very rationally. You cheated. I'm giving you a choice. End the affair or end the marriage. That's logical. That's mature. Pick one. That's not being mature, I argued. Being mature means understanding that relationships are complicated, that people make mistakes, that we can work through infidelity if we communicate properly. I need you to be mature enough to process this without jumping straight to divorce threats. I am being mature, Graeme said. Maturely, I've decided that I won't stay married to someone who's actively cheating on me. Maturely, I'm giving you a clear choice instead of making decisions for you. Maturely, I'm explaining the situation calmly. What's immature about that? You're not even trying to understand why it happened. I don't care why it happened, Graeme said. You had an affair with a coworker. The reason doesn't change what you did. Now choose. End the affair or end the marriage. I was frustrated. Felt like Graeme wasn't listening. Wasn't being reasonable. Wasn't handling this the way mature couples should handle infidelity. I'm not going to be pressured into making a decision right now, I said. We need time to process this, to talk to a counselor, to work through it properly. You can't just demand I choose immediately. Yes, I can, Graeme said. And I am. You have until this weekend to decide. End the affair or I file for divorce Monday morning. That's 3 days. Use them to figure out what you want. This is manipulative. This is boundaries, Graeme corrected. I have a boundary that I won't stay married to someone who's having an affair. You're choosing whether to respect that boundary or not. That's not manipulation. That's maturity. He walked to the bedroom, started packing a bag. I'm staying at my brother's place until you make your decision. You have until Sunday at 6 p.m. Text me your choice. If you choose the marriage, Derek is out of your life completely. New job if necessary. Total cut-off. If you choose Derek, I file for divorce Monday, and we divide everything as cleanly as possible. Graeme, wait. 3 days, Graeme repeated. Be mature about your choice. Really think about what you want. Because once you choose, there's no going back. He left with his bag. Left me standing in our kitchen understanding that my husband was actually serious about divorce if I didn't end my affair immediately. I called my friend Jessica in a panic. Graeme found out about Derek. He hired a private investigator. He's giving me an ultimatum to end the affair, or he's filing for divorce. So end the affair, Jessica said immediately. It's not that simple. It is that simple, Jessica said. You're having an affair. Your husband found out. He's giving you a chance to save your marriage. End the affair. That's the obvious choice. I asked Graeme to be mature about this, and he's just threatening divorce. He is being mature, Jessica said. He's calmly telling you his boundaries. He won't stay married to someone who's cheating. That's reasonable, that's mature. You're the one being immature by acting like he should just accept your affair. I need him to understand why it happened. He doesn't care why it happened, Jessica said. You cheated. That's what matters. End the affair or lose your marriage. Graeme is being very clear and very mature about his position. You need to make a choice. 3 days isn't enough time. 3 days is generous, Jessica said. Most people wouldn't give any time. They'd just file for divorce immediately. Graeme is giving you a chance to save the marriage. Take it. I didn't take it. I spent the next 3 days going back and forth, talking to Derek about the situation. He said he'd end his marriage if I ended mine, that we could be together properly, that maybe this was the universe telling us we were meant to be together. I convinced myself that Graeme was being unreasonable, that mature couples work through infidelity together, that his ultimatum was manipulative rather than mature, that he should be willing to process this over time instead of demanding immediate decisions. Sunday at 6 p.m., I texted Graeme, I need more time. I can't make this decision in 3 days. We need to talk to a counselor and work through this properly. Graeme's response came 2 minutes later. That's your choice. I'm filing for divorce tomorrow morning. My lawyer will contact you about next steps. I called him immediately. Graeme, that's not what I meant. You chose, Graeme said calmly. I gave you a clear choice. End the affair or end the marriage. You chose not to end the affair, so I'm ending the marriage. That's mature. That's respecting my own boundaries. That's not accepting behavior that violates my values. I just need more time. You had 3 days, Graeme said, and you spent those 3 days talking to Derek instead of ending it with him. I know because the investigator is still documenting. You saw Derek twice this weekend, once Friday night, once Saturday afternoon. While I was at my brother's place giving you space to make a decision, you were with him. That tells me everything I need to know about your choice. You're still having me followed? I'm documenting for the divorce, Graeme said. The more evidence I have of ongoing infidelity, the more favourable the terms will be. You chose Derek over me. I'm maturely ending a marriage where my spouse chose someone else. There's nothing immature about that. Graeme, please. I'm filing tomorrow, Graeme said. My lawyer has all the documentation from the investigator. You'll be served with papers probably by Wednesday. We'll divide assets, sell the house, move on with our lives. You wanted me to be mature. I'm being very mature. I'm calmly ending a relationship where I'm not valued. That's what mature people do. He hung up. Alekas Hanes, na han. Graeme filed for divorce. Monday morning, exactly as he'd promised, I received the papers Wednesday at work. They cited adultery and included evidence from the private investigator. Photos of me going to Derek's apartment, timestamps of my visits, detailed documentation of 14 separate occasions over 3 months. The divorce petition was clear and unemotional. Petitioner seeks dissolution of marriage based on respondent's ongoing adultery with coworker Derek Patterson. Respondent was given opportunity to end the affair and chose to continue it. Petitioner is seeking equitable division of assets and clean dissolution of marriage. I tried calling Graeme to talk about it. He didn't answer. Texted me instead. All communication goes through lawyers now. Don't contact me directly. This is the mature way to handle divorce. My mother was unsympathetic when I told her what was happening. Graeme is divorcing you because you had an affair and wouldn't end it. He gave me an ultimatum. He gave you a choice, my mother corrected. End the affair or end the marriage. You chose not to end the affair, so he's ending the marriage. That's logical. That's mature. What's the problem? The problem is, he's not trying to work through it. Why would he work through it? My mother asked. You're actively cheating on him. You asked him to be mature. He's being mature by leaving a relationship where he's being betrayed. That's what mature people do. They don't stay with people who disrespect them. Mature couples can work through infidelity. Mature couples where the cheating spouse ends the affair and commits to rebuilding trust can work through infidelity, my mother said. You wouldn't end the affair. You kept seeing Derek during the 3 days Graeme gave you to decide. You chose Derek. Graeme is maturely accepting your choice and divorcing you. Stop acting like he's doing something wrong. My friend Jessica was equally direct. Graeme is divorcing you and you're surprised. I asked him to be mature about the affair. He is being mature, Jessica said. He's calmly ending a marriage where you're cheating. He gave you a chance to save it. You didn't take that chance. He's following through on exactly what he said he'd do. That's mature. That's having boundaries. That's self-respect. But we could work through this. No, you couldn't, Jessica said, because you wouldn't end it with Derek. Graeme can't work through your affair while you're still having the affair. You chose to keep seeing Derek. Graeme chose to divorce you. Those are both mature choices about what each of you wants. Derek's wife found out about our affair 2 weeks after Graeme filed for divorce. She contacted Graeme for information. Graeme shared the private investigator's reports with her. She filed for divorce immediately too. Derek called me upset. My wife is divorcing me. She said Graeme sent her all the evidence from the investigator, photos, timestamps, everything. She's taking our son. I'm losing my family. Graeme shouldn't have involved her. Graeme answered her questions honestly, Derek said. She called him asking if the rumors about us were true. He confirmed them and sent proof. That's reasonable. Now I'm getting divorced because of our affair. We can be together now. I don't want to be together, Derek said. I just lost my wife and primary custody of my son. My life is falling apart. This was supposed to be just physical, just fun. Now it's costing me my family. I can't see you anymore. This is over. He stopped responding to my texts after that conversation, blocked my number, avoided me at work. The affair that I'd thought was worth fighting for ended as soon as it had real consequences for both of us. The divorce proceeded quickly. Graeme's lawyer was efficient and aggressive. Graeme wanted nothing except a clean exit. We divided assets equitably, sold the house, split everything down the middle. No fighting, no drama, just mature, logical dissolution of a marriage. At the divorce hearing, Graeme's lawyer summarized the case. Petitioner discovered respondent's ongoing affair with Coworker. Petitioner offered respondent clear choice: end the affair or end the marriage. Respondent chose to continue the affair. Petitioner is maturely ending a marriage where his spouse chose someone else. This is uncontested dissolution based on adultery. The judge granted the divorce without hesitation, commented that it was refreshing to see such a straightforward case handled so maturely by both parties. 4 months after Graeme filed, the divorce was final. I'd lost my marriage. Lost Derek when his life fell apart. Lost the house Graeme and I had bought together. Moved into a small apartment alone. Graeme moved on immediately. Started dating someone new within 2 months, according to mutual friends. Someone who presumably didn't think affairs were something to work through maturely. Someone who valued fidelity. My friend Jessica checked in after the divorce finalized. How are you doing with everything? Terrible. I lost my marriage, lost Derek, lost my home. All because Graeme wouldn't work through the affair maturely. Graeme did work through it maturely, Jessica said. He discovered your affair. He documented it. He gave you a clear choice. When you chose Derek, he filed for divorce and divided everything fairly. That's extremely mature. He didn't fight, didn't create drama, just calmly ended a marriage where he wasn't valued. He could have tried counseling. Why? Jessica asked. You were actively cheating. You wouldn't end the affair. What would counseling accomplish? Graeme maturely decided that his boundary is not staying married to someone who's actively cheating. You crossed that boundary. He enforced it. That's maturity. I thought mature meant working through problems. Mature means having boundaries and enforcing them, Jessica said. Mature means leaving relationships where you're disrespected. Mature means not fighting to keep someone who doesn't want to be kept. Graeme demonstrated all of that. You asked him to be mature. He was. He matured right out of your marriage because that's what mature people do when their spouse chooses someone else. My therapist helped me understand what had actually happened. You asked Graeme to be mature about your affair. What did you think that meant? I thought it meant processing it together, working through it, understanding why it happened. You thought it meant accepting your affair, my therapist said. You wanted Graeme to be mature enough to let you keep seeing Derek while working through your marriage issues. That's not maturity, that's enabling. I wanted us to communicate. Graeme communicated very clearly, my therapist said. He told you exactly what his boundary was. No ongoing affairs. You chose to cross that boundary. He maturely enforced it by leaving. That's healthy boundaries. That's self-respect. That's actual maturity. But affairs can be worked through. After they end, my therapist said. After the cheating spouse takes full responsibility. After trust begins to rebuild. Graeme gave you the chance to end it and start that process. You didn't. You kept seeing Derek. So Graeme maturely concluded you'd made your choice and ended the marriage. That's appropriate response to ongoing betrayal. 6 months after the divorce, I finally understood what had happened. Graeme had been mature. Incredibly mature. He'd discovered my affair, and instead of exploding emotionally, he'd calmly gathered evidence, given me a clear choice, followed through on exactly what he'd said he'd do, handled the divorce efficiently and fairly, never fought, never created drama. Just calmly exited a marriage where I'd shown him I'd chosen someone else. I'd asked him to be mature. He'd been mature. So mature that he left without a fight when I wouldn't end my affair. So mature that he enforced his boundaries calmly. So mature that he accepted my choice to keep seeing Derek and responded by filing for divorce exactly as promised. I'd wanted him to be mature enough to accept my affair. He'd been mature enough to leave it. I cheated with a coworker and asked my husband to be mature. He matured right out of the marriage. And I learned that mature people don't fight to keep relationships where they're disrespected. They don't beg or plead or make ultimatums they won't enforce. They calmly set boundaries, give clear choices, and follow through on consequences when those boundaries are violated. Graeme is engaged now according to social media. 8 months after our divorce, building a life with someone who understands that mature people value fidelity. Someone who doesn't need to be given ultimatums about ending affairs. Someone who chose him first. Derek is still going through his divorce, lost primary custody of his son, career damaged from the workplace scandal, regretting that he ever got involved with me, and I'm alone. Understanding too late that asking someone to be mature about betrayal means they'll maturely leave. That mature people have self-respect. That what I wanted wasn't maturity, it was permission to keep cheating while keeping my marriage. And Graeme was too mature to give me that. I asked my husband to be mature about my affair. He matured right out of the marriage by calmly divorcing me. And I learned that maturity means having boundaries and enforcing them, not accepting betrayal and working through it while the betrayal continues. Nine months after Graeme filed for divorce, I was still processing how completely I'd misunderstood what maturity meant in the context of infidelity. I'd thought mature meant accommodating, forgiving, willing to work through difficulties together. I'd learned it meant having boundaries and enforcing them without emotional drama. My new apartment was smaller and less desirable than the house Graeme and I had shared. I'd taken my half of the proceeds from the sale, but it hadn't been enough to buy anything comparable on my own. I'd gone from a beautiful house in a good neighborhood to a basic 2-bedroom apartment in a less convenient area. Every morning, I woke up understanding that my request for maturity had backfired completely. Graeme had been mature, so mature that he'd calmly removed himself from a situation where he wasn't respected, so mature that he'd followed through on exactly what he'd promised without wavering or creating drama. My mother brought it up again during one of our calls. You asked Graeme to be mature, and he divorced you. Do you understand now what happened? He was too rigid. He was appropriately boundaried, my mother corrected. You wanted him to be mature enough to accept your ongoing affair. He was mature enough to refuse to accept it. Those are different kinds of maturity. You wanted enabling. He gave you consequences. I thought we could work through it. Not while you were still seeing Derek, my mother said. Graeme gave you a clear path to working through it. End the affair. Choose the marriage. You didn't. You kept seeing Derek during the 3 days he gave you to decide. That told Graeme everything he needed to know about your priorities. I needed more time. You needed more time to keep both relationships, my mother said. That's what you really wanted, to keep Graeme and keep Derek, to have your affair while Graeme patiently waited for you to decide if your marriage was worth saving. That's not mature. That's selfish. Graeme maturely refused to participate in that scenario. My sister was even more blunt when we talked. You literally asked Graeme to be mature about you cheating on him, and you're surprised he divorced you. I wanted us to handle it like adults. He did handle it like an adult, my sister said. He discovered your affair, documented it professionally, gave you a clear choice with clear consequences, followed through exactly as promised. That's textbook mature behavior. You're the one who handled it immaturely by expecting him to just accept your ongoing affair. 3 days wasn't enough time to make that decision. It was 3 days to make a very simple decision, my sister said. Keep your marriage or keep your affair. You couldn't choose your marriage. That told Graeme you'd already chosen Derek. He maturely accepted your choice and filed for divorce. Stop acting like he did something wrong. Work had become increasingly uncomfortable. Everyone knew about the affair with Derek, knew that both our marriages had ended because of it, knew that we'd caused significant workplace drama. People avoided working with us when possible, treated us professionally but coldly. My manager called me in 10 months after Graeme filed. We need to discuss your future with the firm. The situation with Derek has created ongoing complications for team dynamics. The affair is over, but the consequences aren't, my manager said. Your divorce was public. Derek's divorce was public. Everyone knows what happened. It's affected how colleagues view both of you. People question your judgment, your professionalism, whether you can maintain appropriate boundaries. My personal life shouldn't affect my professional reputation. An affair with a coworker absolutely affects your professional reputation, my manager said. It shows poor judgment, boundary issues, willingness to prioritize personal desires over professional ethics. Those are legitimate concerns about your character. So you're firing me? We're giving you the option to resign, my manager said. We think that's best for everyone. You can look for opportunities elsewhere. Fresh start without the baggage of this situation. Or you can stay and continue dealing with damaged reputation and limited advancement. Your choice. I resigned 2 weeks later, couldn't face staying at a workplace where everyone knew about my affair, where my professional reputation was permanently damaged by personal choices, where Derek worked and avoided me, where every project team I joined had colleagues who'd rather work with someone else. Finding new employment was difficult. Gaps in employment required explanation. References from my previous firm were lukewarm at best. Potential employers would Google me and find references to the affair and divorces in local business network discussions. One interviewer was direct. I'm seeing some concerning information about an affair with a coworker that ended both your marriages and led to your departure from your previous firm. Can you address that? It was a personal matter that I've learned from. It was an affair with a colleague that caused enough workplace disruption that you resigned, the interviewer said. That raises serious questions about judgment and professionalism, about whether you can maintain appropriate boundaries, about character. Those concerns affect whether we'd want you on our team. I eventually found a position at a smaller firm for 30% less than my previous salary. It was a significant step backward professionally, but I needed income, needed something on my resume, needed to start rebuilding. My therapist continued working with me on understanding Graeme's perspective and my misunderstanding of maturity. When you ask Graeme to be mature about your affair, What were you really asking for? I wanted him to not react emotionally, to think rationally about the situation. You wanted him to suppress his emotions and accept your affair, my therapist said. That's not maturity, that's suppression and enabling. Graeme was mature in a different way. He acknowledged his emotions, set clear boundaries, and enforced them calmly. He could have tried to work through it. You were still seeing Derek, my therapist said. Graeme couldn't work through your affair while you were actively continuing it. That's why he gave you the choice. End it, and we can work on the marriage. Keep it, and I end the marriage. You chose to keep seeing Derek. Graeme maturely accepted that choice. I just needed more time. You needed more time to keep both relationships without consequences, my therapist said. Graeme maturely refused to give you that. He gave you 3 days to choose. You spent those 3 days seeing Derek twice. That was your choice. Graeme responded by filing for divorce exactly as he'd promised. That's following through. That's integrity. That's maturity. Why couldn't he understand that affairs are complicated? Because to Graeme, they weren't complicated, my therapist said. His value system is clear. Fidelity matters. When you violated that, he gave you one chance to recommit to fidelity. You didn't take it. He left. That's not lack of understanding. That's clarity of values and willingness to enforce them. Dating was impossible 1 year after the divorce. My history made me unappealing to potential partners. The affair that ended 2 marriages, the professional resignation, the clear pattern of poor judgment and boundary issues. One man I'd been messaging with asked about my divorce. I tried to explain it as neutrally as possible. My ex-husband and I had different views on how to handle relationship issues. I looked you up, he said, found discussions about an affair with a coworker, found references to both marriages ending. Your ex-husband gave you an ultimatum to end the affair or he'd divorce you. You didn't end it. He divorced you. That's not different views on handling issues. That's you choosing your affair over your marriage. It was more complicated than that. Was it? He asked. Sounds straightforward. You cheated. Your husband gave you a choice. You chose wrong. He left. The fact that you're still framing it as different views instead of, I cheated and he had appropriate boundaries, suggests you haven't learned from it. He unmatched immediately. Graeme's engagement had been announced publicly. His fiancée was attractive, accomplished, shared his values. They looked genuinely happy together in photos. He'd moved on completely, built a new life, found someone who didn't need ultimatums about ending affairs. I'd seen them once at a restaurant. 14 months after our divorce finalized, they were having dinner, laughing, comfortable with each other. Graeme looked lighter than I'd seen him in years. His fiancée looked at him with obvious affection and respect. Graeme saw me, nodded once politely, turned back to his fiancée, dismissed me as thoroughly as he'd dismissed our marriage once I'd chosen Derek over him. That hurt more than anything. The realization that I'd meant so little to him once I'd violated his boundaries, that he'd moved on effortlessly, that he'd found someone better who shared his values around fidelity and commitment, that I'd destroyed something good and he'd simply replaced it with something better. My friend Jessica remained one of my few friends who still talked to me regularly. Have you accepted yet that Graeme was right to divorce you? He didn't have to be so final about it. Yes, he did, Jessica said. You were actively cheating. You wouldn't end the affair. What was he supposed to do? Wait around hoping you'd eventually choose him over Derek? That's not mature. That's being a doormat. Graeme maturely chose to leave instead. But marriages are supposed to survive challenges. Not challenges where one spouse is actively cheating and won't stop, Jessica said. Graeme didn't abandon you over a rough patch. He left because you chose someone else. That's appropriate. That's self-respect. That's maturity. I thought mature people work through infidelity. Mature people who've ended their affairs and committed to rebuilding can work through infidelity, Jessica said. You didn't end yours. You kept seeing Derek even after Graeme confronted you, even during the 3 days he gave you to decide. You went to Derek's apartment twice that weekend. That's not trying to save your marriage. That's choosing the affair. I was confused. You were selfish, Jessica corrected. You wanted both relationships. You wanted Graeme to be mature enough to let you keep Derek while working through your marriage. That's not maturity. That's enabling. Graeme was actually mature by refusing to accept that situation. My father, who'd been relatively silent about the situation, finally called 15 months after the divorce. Your mother tells me you're still struggling with Graeme divorcing you. He didn't give me a real chance to work through things. He gave you exactly the chance you deserved, my father said. End the affair or end the marriage. Clear choice, clear consequences. You chose to keep the affair. He followed through on divorcing you. That's fair. That's mature. What more did you want? I wanted him to understand why the affair happened. The why doesn't matter when you won't end it, my father said. Graeme could have spent months in therapy understanding why you cheated. But if you were still sleeping with Derek during that time, what would understanding accomplish? You needed to end the affair first. You wouldn't. So he ended the marriage. Logical, mature. You're taking his side. I'm recognizing reality, my father said. You asked Graeme to be mature about your affair. He was mature by leaving. You wanted him to be permissive. Those are different things. You confused maturity with accepting mistreatment. Graeme knew the difference. 16 months after the divorce, I finally accepted that I'd been completely wrong about what maturity meant. Maturity wasn't accepting betrayal. It was having boundaries. It wasn't working through ongoing infidelity. It was refusing to tolerate it. It wasn't being understanding when your spouse chose someone else. It was having enough self-respect to leave. Graeme had been mature, remarkably mature. He'd discovered my affair, and instead of raging or begging, he'd calmly documented it, given me a clear choice, followed through on exactly what he'd promised, divided everything fairly, never fought, never created drama, just calmly exited when I showed him I'd chosen Derek. I'd asked for maturity and gotten it, just not the kind I'd wanted. I cheated with a coworker and asked my husband to be mature. He matured right out of the marriage, and I learned that mature people leave relationships where they're not valued. They don't fight to keep people who've chosen someone else. They don't wait around hoping the cheating spouse will eventually pick them. They calmly enforce boundaries and move forward with dignity. Graeme married his fiancée 17 months after our divorce. I saw the wedding photos on social media. They looked happy. He looked free. Free of me. Free of the woman who'd asked him to be mature about betrayal and expected it meant accepting it. Derek had also moved on. New city, new job, new relationship according to LinkedIn. Rebuilding after the affair destroyed his marriage and career. And I'm alone, still learning that asking someone to be mature about cheating means they'll maturely leave. That maturity means self-respect, not accommodation. That what I wanted wasn't maturity, it was permission to keep both relationships. And Graeme was too mature to give me that. 18 months after asking Graeme to be mature about my affair, I finally understand what happened. He was mature. So mature that he left without a fight when I wouldn't end my affair. So mature that he enforced his boundaries calmly. So mature that he accepted my choice to keep seeing Derek and responded by choosing to divorce me. I wanted him to be mature enough to tolerate my affair. He was mature enough to refuse it. And I learned too late that those are fundamentally different concepts. That true maturity means having standards and living by them. That mature people don't stay in relationships where they're disrespected. That asking someone to be mature about betrayal means they'll maturely leave rather than maturely accept it. I asked my husband to be mature about my affair with a coworker. He matured right out of the marriage by calmly divorcing me. And I learned that maturity means boundaries, consequences, and self-respect, not tolerance for ongoing betrayal.